Okay, I want to give you some quick tips on how to diagram categorical syllogisms. All right. So when you are diagramming a syllogism that's got 3 circles, one for each term, every proposition, each premise is going to affect 2 sections of the Venn diagram. If the proposition that you are diagramming is a universal proposition, an A proposition or an E proposition, that's going to require you to shade 2 sections, unless one of the sections has already been shaded for some reason. So take, for example, an A-type proposition. Let's go over here to the picture. An A-type proposition is going to require you to shade the apple. Now, let's imagine each circle as an apple, okay? There's the S apple, there's the M apple, and there's the P apple. If there's an A-type proposition that says, for example, all of the S are P, that's going to require you to shade the apple, right? That's the blue part. And you're going to leave blank the bite out of the apple, the smaller part over here. If I were to say, for example, all of the P are M, then I'm going to shade this part of the P apple, and I'm going to leave blank the M bite that that overlaps with the M. If I were to say all of the P's are S's, then I would shade this part of the P apple, and I would leave blank a bite where the S is. Now, your instinct might be to shade the area where things are instead of the things where they're not. But when you want to say all of the P's are S's, you're blanking out all the parts of the P that are not the S. That's what you're doing. And you're leaving white, you're leaving blank, you're leaving open the part of the P that overlaps with the S. It's a little bit counterintuitive. Now, what about E-type propositions? E-type propositions say no blank or blank. And with an E-type proposition, you're going to leave the big part of the apple blank, and you're just going to shade a bite out of it. So it's going to be the opposite. So any statement that's E-type that says no, for example, no S or P, I'm going to leave this part of the S open, and I'm going to shade out the bite where it overlaps with P, because there's nothing here in this area where the S or P. So anytime you have an E statement, it's going to have this shape, whether the shape is here, sorry, that's not supposed to be there, or here, like that, or here, like that. Okay. Sorry. Now, so let's do some examples for a second. What if we wanted to do all S or P? Well, if all the S are P, then there's no S's that aren't P. So we shade the apple and we leave open the bite that overlaps with P. If we want to say all the P are M, then we're going to shade the P apple and we're going to leave open this bite that overlaps with M. It's always going to have this kind of shape. If we want to say no S or P, like that, it's going to have this shape. If we want to say no P or M, boom, it's going to be like that, same shape though. All right, now let's talk about diagramming particular propositions. That is an I proposition or an O proposition. When you diagram particular propositions, you're not going to be using the shading. You're going to be using X's. And you're going to make an X on the line between the 2 sections that are between, you're going to make an X on the line between 2 sections. Unless, of course, one of the sections has already been shaded. So, and if one of the two sections has been shaded, the X goes directly in the other remaining section. So let me give you some examples. What if we wanted to say, here's an I-type statement. Some S are P. Okay, so we're saying there are some S's in the area of the S circle that overlaps with the P circle. And these are the two areas that overlap with where S and P overlap. We need to make the X on the line that runs between those two areas. Now, why do we do that? Because if we know that some S are P, what this says is we don't know whether those S are over here, outside of the M circle, or over here, inside of the M circle, or both. So we put it on the line. The statement itself, some S or P, doesn't tell us whether the X should be here or here, so we put it on the line. Now, what if we want to say some S are not P? Again, we're going to put an X on the line, but let's look at the area of S, which is not P, these two areas. Now, we want to put the X on the line that runs between those two areas. Why? Because we don't know whether the S's that aren't P are over here or over here. We do know that they're all the way outside of P, so they've got to be over here, but we put it on the line. Now, when you diagram the premises of a syllogism, you're going to have two premises to diagram. And when you get to the minor premise, the second premise, you may be intersecting with stuff you already diagrammed. Okay, so here's two basic rules. You can't put an X on the line between a blank and a shaded area. Instead, put the X directly in the shaded area. So let's do an example. Let's do this one. What if my major premise was all S are P? Okay, if all S are P, now I'm going to shade these two areas. I'm going to shade the apple and leave the blank bite. But then I've got my minor premise, some S are M. Some S are M. Now, ordinarily, if some S are M, then it would be on the line here, right? Because this is the part of the S area that overlaps with M, and ordinarily I don't know whether it's over here, or both. But since this is shaded, I can't put the X on the line. Instead, the shade bumps the X all the way over into this area. Okay, now let's do it in the reverse order. What if my major premise says this? Some S are M. Well, in that case, I'm going to put the X on the line here. But then my minor premise says all the S are P. Let's say so all S are P. Well, in that case, I'm going to shade this, I'm going to shade this. But now I've got this problem because the X is on the line between a shade and an open area. So I'm going to bump the X off the line all the way into this area. That's how I'm going to do it. So shade bumps X's into the adjoining blank area. When you shade an area with an X on its border, bump the X out of the shaded area directly into the blank area. Those are all the basic moves you need to diagram categorical syllogisms. Remember these basic ideas. A propositions, you shade the apple, you leave the blank bite out of it. E-type propositions, you leave that apple blank and you shade the bite out of it. With particular propositions, put an X on the line between two sections unless one of those has been shaded. That's the basic story.